Hello, this is Sarah. I'm going to read you Willow's narrative today, which goes by this title. In order to host family gatherings, my parents surreptitiously duplicated the keys to my lake house. They wouldn't let me in when I went there for the weekend. "You have no place here," my sister said. "Go to sleep in the car." I relished their troubles, so I did it. "All right, let's leave." I'm Willow, and I must tell you about my family's chaos. I'm 31 years old and employed downtown at a large computer business as a programmer. When I was in college, battling with student loans and eating ramen every night, I never imagined that the salary would be this wonderful. 3 years ago, I finally saved enough to buy my own apartment. Nothing fancy, just a decent two-bedroom place where I could actually invite people over without being embarrassed. Last year, I found this amazing country house by a lake about an hour outside the city. It was perfect, quiet, peaceful, and I could work remotely when I needed some space to think through complex coding problems. I even got high-speed internet installed so I wouldn't miss any important work stuff. Now, about my family. Mom worked as a secretary most of her life until she retired last year, and Dad does maintenance at a local school. They live in the same house I grew up in. Then there's my younger brother Jake, who's 28 and bounces between jobs. Right now, he's working at some warehouse, but he's always complaining about the hours or the boss or something. My sister Emma is 25 and works part-time at a retail store while supposedly studying for some certification she never seems to finish. Here's the thing that makes family dinners awkward. I make about 4 times what any of them make. It started small. Jake needed help with his rent one month, so I covered it. Emma's car broke down, so I helped with the repair bill. Mom and Dad were struggling with their electric bill during a hot summer, so I took care of it. But then it became expected. I started paying Jake and Emma's rent every month. Jake lives in this crappy studio apartment for $800, and Emma has a slightly better one-bedroom for $1,100. I send Mom $400 every month for their utilities and groceries. Sometimes, I just hand them cash when I visit $200 here, $300 there, just because I can and they seem to need it. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind helping family, but the comments started getting weird. Like when I showed up to Sunday dinner with a new handbag, just a regular bag from Target that cost maybe $45. "Must be nice to buy whatever you want while some of us worry about paying bills," Emma said, giving my bag this look like I'd bought something made of gold. I hadn't bought myself anything new in months. This was literally the first bag I'd purchased in 2 years, and it wasn't even expensive, but suddenly I'm the bad guy for spending my own money on something I needed. Jake does it too. "Hey, Willow, saw you got those new shoes." Meanwhile, I'm eating rice and beans again because work cut my hours. Never mind that I just covered his rent, and he spent last weekend at some expensive concert with his friends. Dad is usually quiet during these comments, but he'll nod along like they have a point. Mom tries to smooth things over, but in this passive-aggressive way. "Oh, you know your brother and sister. They just wish they had your opportunities." The worst part is how they talk about my success like it was just luck. Like I didn't spend 4 years in college studying computer science while working nights at a diner to pay for it. Like I didn't put in 60-hour weeks for 2 years to prove myself at this company. Like I didn't learn 3 programming languages on my own time to get promoted. "Some people just get all the breaks," Jake said once, right in front of me at a family barbecue. I wanted to ask him what breaks he thought I'd gotten, but I bit my tongue. I always bite my tongue. I don't want to start fights or make family gatherings even more uncomfortable than they already are. So, I started visiting less. Instead of every Sunday, maybe twice a month. Instead of staying for hours, I'd eat dinner and find an excuse to leave early. The lake house changed everything, though. I'd been looking for months, and when I found this place, I knew it was perfect. 2 bedrooms, a big deck overlooking the water, and enough space for me to really spread out when I was working on big projects. The price was fair for the area, and I had enough saved up to buy it outright without touching my emergency fund. I was so excited to tell them about it at our next family dinner. I thought they'd be happy for me, maybe even proud. Instead, the whole table went silent when I mentioned it. "You bought what?" Mom asked, setting down her fork. "A house by the lake. It's about an hour north of here. Really peaceful. Great for working from home when I need to focus." Jake laughed, but not in a good way. Jesus, Willow, another house? How much money do you need to have? It's not about needing money, I said. I work hard. I save up. And I wanted a place where I could relax. Relax, Emma repeated. Must be nice. Some of us can't even afford to relax in our own apartments because we're worried about making rent. I help with your rent, I pointed out, trying to keep my voice level. Right. But think about what else that money could have done, Mom said, waving her hands around. We could have fixed the roof here or updated the bathroom or put in that new furnace we've been talking about. You should have discussed this with us first. I stared at her. Discussed it with you? It's my money, Mom. I get to decide how to spend it. The silence that followed was awful. Dad cleared his throat and looked at his plate. Jake shook his head like I'd said something terrible. Emma just sat there with this smug expression, like she'd won some kind of argument. I'd like to see this house, Emma finally said, breaking the tension. Sure, I said, though I was already regretting it. I'll give you the address. Maybe you can visit next weekend. I drove up Friday evening and spent a quiet night unpacking some things and setting up my workspace. Saturday morning, I was on the deck with my coffee when I heard Dad's pickup truck coming down the gravel driveway. They all piled up, Mom, Dad, Jake, and Emma, and just stood there staring at the place. The house sits about 50 feet back from the water with a decent yard and some mature oak trees that give it privacy from the neighbors. I gave them the full tour. They seemed genuinely impressed, which felt good after all their comments about my spending. Jake loved the big living room with the stone fireplace. Mom kept talking about how peaceful it was. Emma claimed the guest bedroom immediately and asked if she could stay the night. You know what? I said Sunday morning, watching them all sprawled around my living room like they lived there. You guys could come up here when I'm not around. Just let me know ahead of time so we don't double book. Before they left, I gave Mom a spare key. It seemed like the right thing to do, family helping family, sharing what I had worked hard for. For about 6 months, everything went smoothly. They'd text asking if they could use the house for a weekend. I'd say yes, and they'd head up there. I'd usually find things pretty much how I left them, maybe some extra dishes to wash or towels to clean. No big deal. Then one Friday, I finally had a free weekend and decided to surprise myself with a solo trip to the house. I needed to decompress after finishing a particularly difficult coding problem. I threw some clothes in a bag and drove up without telling anyone. The moment I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. The place reeked of beer and cigarettes. There were pizza boxes stacked on my kitchen counter, empty bottles everywhere, and something sticky spilled all over my hardwood floors. My white couch had stains on it that I didn't want to identify. In the guest room, there were sheets and blankets thrown around like someone had been jumping on the bed. The bathroom was disgusting, towels on the floor, toothpaste smeared on the mirror, and hair clogging the sink drain. I was furious. I walked around taking pictures of everything with my phone. This wasn't just messy, this was destroyed. Someone had clearly thrown a party here and treated my house like a cheap hotel room. I spent the entire weekend cleaning, scrubbing floors, washing every piece of fabric in the house, trying to get stains out of furniture. By Sunday evening, my back ached and my hands were raw from cleaning products. But the house was finally back to normal. Monday after work, I drove straight to my parents' house. Jake and Emma were both there for dinner, which was perfect because I wanted to talk to all of them at once. We need to discuss what happened at the lake house, I said, pulling out my phone to show them the photos. Emma glanced at the photos and shrugged. Oh, that. Yeah, I had some friends over last weekend. Some friends, Emma? Look at these pictures. There's food ground into the carpet, beer spilled everywhere, cigarette burns on my deck furniture. It's your house, Emma said, waving her hand dismissively. So, you should clean it up. I stared at her. But you made the mess. Jake nodded like Emma had made a perfectly reasonable point. She's got a point, Willow. You're the homeowner, and you can afford to hire a cleaning service anyway, Mom added. You're always talking about how well you do at work. What's a few hundred to you? Dad leaned back in his chair. Emma's right. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. This is just normal wear and tear. Normal wear and tear? I held up a picture of pizza sauce splattered on my white living room wall. This is normal? You're being dramatic, Emma said. We're family. Family doesn't keep score about little things like cleaning. I felt something snap inside me. I want the key back, I said, holding out my hand to Mom. Willow, don't be hasty, she started. The key. Now. None of you are allowed back until you understand how ungrateful you're being. Mom's face went hard. She reached into her purse, pulled out the key, and slapped it into my palm without a word. I walked toward the door, and Dad called after me, "You're turning yourself against your whole family over nothing." I left without answering. 3 months passed, and none of them called me. Not once. They didn't apologize, didn't ask for money, didn't even check to see how I was doing. But I kept paying Jake and Emma's rent like always. Kept sending Mom money for utilities because that's what I'd always done. I barely went to the lake house during those months. Work was crazy, and honestly, the place felt tainted by what had happened. But finally, I finished this massive project that had been eating my life for months. I decided to take a whole week off and spend it at the lake house, getting back to enjoying the place I'd worked so hard to buy. Friday evening, I loaded up my car with groceries and clothes for the week. I was looking forward to a solid 7 days of sleeping in, reading books on the deck, and maybe doing some light work from my office upstairs. But when I pulled into the driveway, every single light in the house was on. Music was blasting loud enough that I could hear it over my car engine. My first thought was that someone had broken in, but then I realized burglars don't usually announce their presence with a dance party. I walked up to the front door and tried to unlock it with my key. It wouldn't turn. Someone had left their key in the lock from the inside, blocking mine. I knocked loudly on my own door. After a few seconds, Mom opened it. She looked surprised to see me, but not scared or guilty, just surprised. "Willow, what are you doing here?" "This is my house, Mom. What are you doing here?" She shrugged calmly. "I made a copy of the key before I gave it back to you. We decided to have a little family party tonight." I looked past her into the living room and couldn't believe what I saw. The place was packed with people. Dad, Jake with some girl I'd never seen, Emma with her boyfriend, and what looked like half our extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins I only saw at weddings. They all waved at me cheerfully and went back to their conversations. "You made a copy without telling me?" I asked. "Don't spoil everyone's good time," Mom said, still blocking the doorway. "We'll be out of here Sunday night. I want to come inside. I have bags in my car and I need to put my stuff in my room." That's when Emma appeared next to Mom with a sickeningly sweet smile. "Sorry, there's no room for you. We've got people sleeping in both bedrooms and the couches are all taken. If you really need to sleep somewhere, you could always use your car." Before I could find words, Mom and Emma stepped back and slammed the door in my face. I walked back to my car and sat there for about 10 minutes, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to call the police right then and have them all arrested for trespassing. They had no legal right to be in my house. I had taken the key back, told them they weren't welcome, and they had made an unauthorized copy. But they were still my family. As angry as I was, the thought of watching my parents get handcuffed and put in a police car made me sick. So, I made a different choice. I drove home to my apartment, unpacked my week's worth of clothes, and sat down at my computer. I logged into my bank account and started canceling things. First, I canceled the automatic rent payments for Jake's studio apartment. Then, I canceled Emma's rent payments. Finally, I canceled the monthly transfer I sent to Mom for utilities and groceries. It felt good, really good. For 3 years, I had been sending them over $2,300 every month, and what did I get for it? Snide comments about my spending, lectures about how I should share more, and now this, being locked out of my own house. Saturday and Sunday crawled by. I tried to distract myself with Netflix and cleaning my apartment. I was curious about what was happening at the lake house, but I didn't want to drive up there and deal with whatever mess they were making. Sunday evening, I checked Emma's Instagram. She had posted a bunch of photos from our family vacation at what she called the lake house. Not Willow's lake house or my sister's place, just the lake house, like it belonged to all of us. The photos showed exactly what I expected: people drinking on my deck, someone doing a cannonball off my dock, a group shot in my living room with everyone holding beer bottles. The caption said, "Best family weekend ever. Back to reality tomorrow." Monday morning, I drove back to the lake house. They were gone, but the damage was obvious. Empty bottles and cans everywhere. Food ground into the deck, cigarette butts floating in the lake near my dock. The inside was even worse than after Emma's first party. It took me the entire day to clean everything. Tuesday morning, I called a locksmith. "I need all the locks changed on my house," I told him. "Can you come out today?" He showed up around noon and replaced every lock, front door, back door, and the deadbolt I had installed when I first bought the place. Then I called a security company. "I need a full alarm system," I told them. Motion detectors, door sensors, and cameras around the whole perimeter. They came out Wednesday and spent the whole day installing everything: cameras at every corner of the house, motion sensors in the yard, door alarms, and a control panel that would send alerts directly to my phone. If anyone so much as stepped on my property without permission, I would know about it immediately. I spent the rest of that week at the lake house, enjoying the peace and quiet. The new security system made me feel safe, and honestly, it was nice to be there without worrying about my family showing up uninvited. None of them called me, not once during that entire week. They either hadn't tried to pay their bills yet, or they had money saved up and didn't realize I had cut them off. Either way, the silence was telling. They only contacted me when they needed something. The next Friday evening, I was back in my apartment making dinner when my phone buzzed with a security alert. I opened the app and watched the camera feed from my lake house. Dad and Jake were walking around the house, trying to look in windows. Mom and Emma were standing by the front door. Then Jake tried his key in the lock. When it didn't work, he tried again, jiggling it and pushing on the door. Dad came over and tried his own key. Nothing. My phone started ringing. Mom's number. I didn't answer. Then Emma called, then Jake. I ignored all of them. On the camera, I watched Dad and Jake walk around to the back of the house. They found the sliding door that leads to the deck and tried to force it open. When that didn't work, Jake picked up one of my patio chairs, and I realized he was about to break the glass. That's when I called 911. "Someone is trying to break into my house," I told the dispatcher. "I'm watching them on my security cameras right now." "Are you at the property?" "No, I'm at home in the city, but they're definitely trying to break in. One of them just picked up a chair and looks like he's about to smash my sliding door. We're sending officers to the location now." I stayed on the line with the dispatcher and kept watching the cameras. Jake smashed the sliding door with the chair and stepped through the broken glass into my living room. Dad followed him. A few seconds later, they unlocked the front door from the inside and let Mom and Emma in. I watched my family spread out through my house like they owned it. Emma went straight to the kitchen and started opening cabinets. Mom headed upstairs to the bedrooms. Dad was looking at my new alarm control panel, probably trying to figure out how to turn it off. Then I saw the police cars pull into my driveway, lights flashing. 2 officers got out and approached the front door with their hands on their weapons. What happened next was exactly what I had been afraid of, but also exactly what they deserved. The officers shouted commands. My family came out with their hands up. And within 10 minutes, all 4 of them were in handcuffs, sitting in the back of police cars. My phone rang. It was the police. "Ma'am, we've detained 4 individuals who broke into your property. They're claiming to be your family members. Can you confirm their identities?" I looked at their names and birth dates. "Yes, those are my family members." "Did you give them permission to enter your property tonight?" "No, I specifically told them they were not allowed on my property. They made unauthorized copies of my keys, so I had all the locks changed and installed a security system. We'll need you to come to the station to file a formal complaint. Can you be here tonight?" "I'm not feeling well," I lied. "I'll come in first thing tomorrow morning." I hung up, poured myself a glass of wine, and turned off my phone. For the first time in years, I went to sleep with a smile on my face. Saturday morning, I took my time getting ready. I made myself a nice breakfast, read the news, and generally enjoyed the fact that my family had spent the night in jail while I slept peacefully in my own bed. Around 10 a.m., I turned my phone back on. 37 missed calls. Dozens of frantic text messages from numbers I didn't recognize, probably other relatives trying to reach me. I deleted all the messages without reading them and drove to the police station. The officer at the front desk led me to a small room where Detective Martinez was waiting with some paperwork. Miss Chin, your family members are asking to speak with you. They've been here all night, and they're pretty upset. I'm sure they are. Before we go any further, I need to ask, do you want to press formal charges for breaking and entering? This is a serious felony charge. They could face significant jail time. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to see them face real consequences for once, but they were still my family, even if they were terrible people. I don't want to press charges, I said finally. Detective Martinez shrugged and made some notes on his paperwork. That's your choice. We'll process their release, but it might take a few hours. They're asking to speak with you before you leave. Bring them out. A few minutes later, another officer brought them into the room. They looked awful, tired, scared, and still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Mom's hair was a mess, and Emma had mascara streaked down her cheeks. Dad looked furious, and Jake just looked confused. Willow, thank God, Mom said, reaching for me. You have to get us out of here. This is all a big misunderstanding. I stepped back so she couldn't touch me. It's not a misunderstanding. You broke into my house. We're family, Emma said, starting to cry again. You can't just abandon us like this. Watch me. Jake finally spoke up. Come on, Willow. Just pay our bail, and we can work this out at home. I'm not paying anything. You want out? Figure it out yourselves. Dad slammed his hand on the table. You're really going to leave your own parents in jail? You're really going to break into your daughter's house and then act like the victim? We just wanted to use the house for the weekend, Mom said. Because I changed the locks after you made unauthorized copies of my keys. Because you trashed my house twice and refused to clean up after yourselves. Because you told me to sleep in my car outside my own house. Emma stopped crying and glared at me. You're being ridiculous. It's just a house. It's my house that I bought with my money. Money that I've been sharing with all of you for years while you complained that I didn't share enough. They all looked at each other like they were trying to figure out what to say. And just so you know, I continued, I stopped paying all your bills. Jake, your rent check bounced this week. Emma, yours too. Mom, I'm not sending you utility money anymore. You want my money? You should have treated me better. The room went completely silent. Mom's face went white. You can't do that, Emma whispered. I already did. Have a nice life. I walked out of the police station and drove home. Over the next few weeks, my phone rang constantly with calls from relatives I barely knew. My cousin Sarah called to tell me that Mom and Dad had promised to let her use my lake house for her engagement party. You should have asked me first, I told her, but they said it was okay. They don't own my house, Sarah. They have no right to promise it to anyone. She hung up on me. Through mutual friends, I heard all about what happened after I cut them off financially. Jake and Emma couldn't make their rent and had to move back in with Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad were struggling to pay their utility bills without my monthly contributions. Dad had to pick up extra shifts at work, and Mom was talking about getting a part-time job. Everyone blamed me, of course. According to the Family Gossip Network, I was cruel and selfish. I had turned my back on my family over petty grievances. I was letting money go to my head and forgetting where I came from. I blocked all their numbers and social media accounts. I didn't want to hear their complaints or their attempts to guilt me into resuming their allowances. For the first time in years, I was keeping my entire paycheck for myself, and it felt amazing. A month later, I was back at my lake house, enjoying the peace and quiet. The security system gave me complete confidence that no one could bother me there. I spent the weekend on my deck, reading and working on some personal coding projects without a single interruption. My family still thinks I'm the bad guy in this story. They think I overreacted and that I should forgive them and go back to supporting them financially. You know what, though? What they think is no longer important to me. For years, I served as their ATM while they chastised me for every choice and purchase I made. When they advised that I sleep in my car and locked me out of my own house, it was a clear indication of how much they regarded me. When they refused to clean up after themselves because I was rich enough to handle it, they demonstrated their priorities to me. I'm not foolish enough to keep trying, and I'm not wealthy enough to buy their respect. Until they learn to treat me like a person and not just a bank account, I'm done with them all.